What's up, everybody? It's Invisible Walls, episode 182 here on GameTrailers.com. Got to start off the show today by apologizing. I know last week I said we would be talking about Uncharted 3 this week. Unfortunately, the embargo is not working out. And in a little bit of a twist of fate, we thought we were going to be able to talk today about Battlefield 3 because it does come out next Tuesday.
Oh, we're still going to be talking about Battlefield 3.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it, but not about the game proper, so you definitely want to stick around for that discussion. It's crazy. We're kind of in this weird lull in the middle. We're in the eye of the storm right now. That's the best way to describe it.
A void of emptiness.
I blame Batman's embargo being early.
I blame Batman for being brilliant. I'm glad we have a week off because that's all I'm playing is Batman.
Yeah, I don't have a week off. I'm not going to sleep for the next 4 weeks. We're answering a lot of your questions today in On the Hook. Truth be told, this is probably the last chance you're going to get your questions answered before the year is over.
Until we get to December and we can't be asked to think up of anything to talk about.
But I think this will probably be the last shot. You guys asked some really great questions, by the way, so we'll get to that in a little bit. First of all, on the show, you've already heard from Marcus Beer.
Bonjour.
And Ryan Stevens is in the house.
Salut.
Oh, actually, I've got to redact that bonjour because I'm pissed off at the French, and in particular, one French-Irish referee who cost my Wales team a place in the World Cup final this week. Ooh. He sent our captain off for a yellow card offence, so the referee in question, Alain Roland, fucker.
Marcus just sounded like the adults in the Charlie Brown cartoons to me.
Let's get to the show. All right, next we're going to do a segment that I think may become a regular on the show, depending on how it goes. Folks, make sure you give us your feedback on this segment in the comments because we want to see if you guys like it or not. It actually is spawning out of a column I wrote for Reset last weekend. It is called Fantasy or Reality. And essentially what I do is I throw out some of the rumors and other stuff that's floating around the gaming industry, and then it's up to the panel members to decide whether they believe it's fantasy or reality. Now, a couple of these I did include in my column, but I've also come up with a few new ones. Neither one of these guys have seen any of these questions.
That's because we haven't read your column.
Sorry, thanks, Marcus.
I was playing Batman, sorry.
You the man. All right. First question. Fantasy or reality?
Fantasy.
Is the answer Japan?
You're ruining it. First question or statement. Battlefield 3 will sell half as many copies as Modern Warfare 3. Fantasy or reality, Marcus?
If you'd asked me a week ago, I'd have said it was fantasy. No, I'm going to say it's reality.
And we'll talk about why a little later, I guess.
Yeah.
I will also agree. I think it would be worldwide. I think it would be, Europe. I think if it sells... I think people forget Black Ops was insane.
Was the best-selling game of all time.
And it wasn't even a better game than Modern Warfare 2, or I'd make that argument. I would say half would be decent. I don't think it's going to hit half.
Fantasy or reality?
So I guess that would be fiction, so that would be... Oh, wait, no, reality? Okay, I'm getting confused, sorry.
If you don't agree, that would be fantasy.
Fantasy. I don't know. I picture like Wood Elves or something.
All right. Question or statement number 2. This one I did have in my column. The PlayStation 3 has been a disappointment. Ryan, you start this one. Fantasy or reality?
Fantasy. Maybe not quite as big as the Xbox in terms of core, or big as and definitely didn't grab the the Wii market share, whatever you want to consider that these days. Casual. But I think it's had it's won our Platform of the Year award with its exclusives more than enough, and Blu-ray player is still pretty hard to beat, even though video streaming is becoming kind of the norm these days. But I think it's hard to say. Maybe if you bought it day one, maybe you were a little nervous, especially with some of those poor ports. But at this point, I think that PlayStation 3 is a viable gaming system, even if it's teetering around third place in the U.S.
Marcus, the PlayStation 3 has been a disappointment. Fantasy or reality?
Total fantasy, despite Sony's best efforts. Sony,
it's tried really hard.
Yeah, it's tried really hard to just screw themselves over
Maybe
and over.
if we get our system hacked.
Yeah, and I got to say, I mean, when Sony actually do get their act together, God help everybody else, because they have the tech. So yes, I think that's total fantasy.
So you, even compared to what we got from the PS2, you guys both think that it hasn't been a disappointment.
Well, I'll go out on a limb, and I was never a big PS2 fan, despite that giant library of games.
Yeah.
That whole generation felt a little off for me.
Okay. Next statement. The Wii U is coming out next year. Fantasy or reality? Marcus, you're first.
No.
Can I call a friend?
Smoke coming out of Marcus's ears right now.
Can I call a friend, Bob? I'm going to say that is. Are we talking US? Coming out in the US or coming out anywhere?
Anywhere.
Anywhere. I'd say it's reality that it would probably come out in Japan next fall. I think it's fantasy that the rest of the world will see it next year. I don't think we'll see it until the year after.
And why?
Because the situation in Japan right now, I mean, obviously there's still the after effects of the earthquake. We know that's been affecting production on various things. I think Nintendo are happy to, they're going to squeeze another year out of the Wii, drop it down in price one more time.
Isn't that what they did this year?
Well, I think they'll
squeeze one more year out of it.
They'll throw. Well, no, I think they have to. They have to throw more weight behind the 3DS to make sure that doesn't it doesn't totally fail. So I think they'll probably leave it for another year, because the things we've been hearing about the Wii U since the E3 debut have not been encouraging, and I think Nintendo would be smart to take pause and evaluate and make sure that when they do have something coming out, it is something that is mind-blowing.
Ryan, the Wii U is coming out next year.
Pretty much I agree with him. Reality. I think we'll see it in Japan, but I will also completely splinter my answer and say that's with the hardware as they've shown it so far. If they're going back for a hard redesign, I think we're going to see a push. And I think there's a chance. I still think that the one-touch screen is a pretty poor move.
Okay. Next statement. The PlayStation Vita will flop. Ryan, fantasy or reality?
Flop is has a definite connotation to it. I'm going to be a little gloom and doom and kind of go with what a lot of people have been saying and say, yeah, I don't think it's going to be unsupported. I don't think it's going to be a total bomb, but I think it will be considered another faux pas. I think probably what's even more interesting to watch right now is how the Kindle Fire and the Vita go off against each other, because we're getting an affordable tablet that's hopefully going to be decent versus this stunning piece of technology that offers couch experiences on the go. I'm still curious if for adults in particular, if a couch experience is what you really want on the go.
Marcus, the PlayStation Vita will flop. Fantasy or reality?
I'm going to say reality. And there's one reason why I really want it to be reality, because I never want to hear the phrase transfarking again. But I really think, I agree with Ryan. I think mobile technology, tablets, cell phones are evolving at such a rate that I think the era of the handheld exclusive gaming console, or whatever you want to call it, is it's coming to an end. I mean, it's had its place. It's like like VHS, like buying CDs. I don't think until we can open up a little gadget the size of a thumb drive and it nano explodes into like a big screen that plugs into the back of your head or whatever. I think we've seen the end of it. I don't think people are going to shell out that much money for something that doesn't give them an experience that can be matched by their cell phone or tablet.
This will also be the death of JRPGs, by the way.
You're absolutely right. Okay, the final statement. And Marcus, you're up first on this one. The Xbox 360 has won this generation. Fantasy or reality?
Okay, so this generation, does that include the Wii?
It does.
In that case, that's fucking bollocks, because the Wii won this generation on sales alone. While I'm not the biggest fan of the console, and a lot of the games that have been shoveled out on it, when it comes down to sales, anybody who says otherwise is
But I mean,
a
it's
twat.
not just sales, right?
Well, I mean, well, that's the thing. What's the definition of winning? Is it the best games? Is it the number of units sold? Is it the amount, the amount of tech that it's going to last the longest? So
Isn't
I can
it really the amount of money that's made ultimately?
Well, in that case, it's the Wii.
Is it?
Yeah. The Wii was the one system that was making a profit from day one with with Nintendo. Microsoft priced out the Xbox to make a profit, and then once they hit the price drop, they stopped making a profit on the systems. They make profits on the games. Do I think the Xbox has had some of the best games of this generation, totally. But if we're judging it on what's made the most money, you've got to say it's the Wii.
Ryan,
Well,
the
I think-
Xbox 360
I think-
has won this generation. Fantasy or reality?
Reality, because money is definitely a factor, and it's easy to look at console sales, but you also have to look at game attachment rates. Not to sound like fucking Pachter here, but you know the Wii's got like a 1.7 games attached to each console sold, while I think the Xbox has like 9
Like
a year,
9.
9.3, and I think the PlayStation has 6. I haven't looked at the statistics in a while. And I think it's definitely kind of won the hearts and minds. It's really set up this online network that it laid the foundation with. I mean, obviously Microsoft has an endless pool of money, and they did a lot of missteps with the original Xbox, throwing tons of money. Like, who the hell cared about an Oddworld game, back in the
Or
day?
just what about the hardware?
Or
the failure rate of the
Obi-Wan.
hardware.
But throwing in a hard drive, I mean, they've really, set the stage. They've set up easy ports from PC. I mean, we're still seeing some not so much now, but inferior ports to PS3 technology, and and I think the core is still growing, even though this casual thing, it may be a fad, man. I mean, these sales are dropping left and right for the Wii. I don't know. There's not a lot of clamor around the Wii U. It's moving to the iPad and stuff. But I think in another way, I think maybe the real winner is the DS. That thing sold a ton of units, had casuals and core players playing a ton of games.
But that
It
was
did
pre
incorporate.
this generation, though, wasn't it?
yeah, I
It
mean,
was
I'm
04.
talking about the big three
Yeah.
consoles.
I know.
not-
I'm just throwing in a side comment here.
Well, let me counter the attach rate. If you look at the Nintendo,
Marcus, I was trying to prod you to get you to start thinking about they don't make their money off hardware; they make their money off software.
Marketing.
well, I think Nintendo with the attach rate when they have, however, hundreds of millions of Wii around the world, they don't need a 9-game attach rate because the games that sell are Mario, are Zelda, are the Wii Fit balance boards, and Nintendo makes all the money off those. The third-party games, they do tack on, they do sell a certain amount,
But I
enough
think
to
you're looking
generate
at
a
this-
profit. I'm looking at this from a business perspective.
You're looking at it
from a money
at a
perspective,
kind
which
of
is
a-
what Shane said, which has made the most money. And since Reggie is still wiping his ass with $100 bills, you've got to say the Wii has made the most money.
No, because
And based on Shane's
But one of the things about saying
description, it's the winner.
generation is
No, I
you
said
also
which has generated the most money.
you also have to think about how generations will affect the next generation, and there's kind of like a lineage.
He said
And
which has made the most money, not lineage, not potential. Do I think
I'm
the
looking at it
Xbox
in the
had
big
the-
picture. We
He-
can argue
we're
about
looking-
semantics.
we're looking
I'm
at it
not
from the question.
sure that the Wii did make more money. I think that the 360 has probably generated more revenue than the Wii.
Every single
Because
Wii,
Microsoft gets a cut off every single copy of a game sold on its system. So,
Well, so
sure, Nintendo's first-party games have outsold Microsoft, maybe, probably.
And Let's
and
Dance.
Nintendo
But-
get more money from those because they're their own. Nintendo make profit on every single Wii, on every single Wii peripheral that is sold. And when you're looking at let's say 70 million Wiis here in the US, and 35 million Xboxes. Well, Nintendo have made profit on every one of those Wiis. The units themselves. They've made profits on every single nunchuck they've sold. They've made profit on every single balance board they've sold, which was the biggest selling toy of 2 years ago. Every single game, like a Just Dance, they take their regular cut as well. So you've got to say that when it comes to making money, I'm not saying it's the best console. I'm not saying it won because it was the most innovative, fantastic thing ever for the gamers. Far from it. But for the best of the most amount of money generated into Nintendo's pockets, you've got to say the Wii wins hands
you asked
down.
Shane for clarification on that, and I'm kind of downplaying what he told you. I'm thinking if someone asked me if they had won this generation, just at a blanket statement with no follow-up questions, if I incorporate everything that I think about, yes, I say they did win. It is reality.
There you go. Hope you guys like it. Make sure to leave the comments about whether you want us to do this again or not. All right, so we mentioned Battlefield 3 a little earlier. There is a big brouhaha.
Oh, can you smell that, Shane? It smells like controversy.
Oh, there is some
That's me, I'm
controversy out
sorry.
there.
It's Controversy by Calvin Klein.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing I will say is that we did get this game for review very late, but that's pretty much all I can say on my end. But Marcus, however, can say whatever the hell he wants, so here he goes.
Because let me preface this, but I am only a freelancer. I am not employed by Game Trailers in any official capacity other than to work on this show. So yes, I got sent a tweet yesterday that directed me to a Norwegian website that basically said that EA Norway had sent out questionnaires to all the reviewers before they decided on who was getting the review copies of Battlefield, and it said, did the reviewer like the beta? Has he played previous Battlefield games? Does he like Modern Warfare? Yes or no, and a whole bunch of stuff. And then it came out that only 3 outlets in Norway are getting Battlefield prior to launch. And I've done some digging, and this is the case in every territory, that there is no more than 4 or 5 tops of the top outlets who are getting the game before it launches next week. That, for a game of this magnitude, is so worrying. I mean, I'm not
to put it in perspective, I've had Uncharted 3 for almost a month at this point.
That's pretty rare, though, as well.
Well, not really.
No, I mean
we get a lot.
Sony,
I also have several other of the biggest games for Q4 that aren't coming out for over a month.
I had Deus Ex 2 weeks before launch. I had Rage 10 days before launch. I had Batman a week before launch. And we are talking about a game that's been in development for such a long time that EA has been, aggressively hyping, and so it seems they've been so busy trying to measure their collective cocks against Activision that they forgot that, guess what, we need a decent game.
Well, I also noticed that a lot of the advertisements running for Battlefield across the interwebs, there's this quote from MSNBC that straight up says, Battlefield 3 is better than Modern Warfare 3. Now, I don't know how anyone can make that determination at this point.
They were talking about the box art.
Yeah.
I'll give it that.
Yeah.
But it's running everywhere as if it's fact, and whoever it was at MSNBC hasn't played either one of these games, probably at all. If maybe he played a little bit at E3.
Can I ask, how did I don't remember, how did EA handle Medal of Honor?
We got Medal of Honor pretty far in advance, yeah.
Yeah, or you think they're just kind of, let's be honest, Medal of Honor was what they tried to throw against Black Ops last year.
Right.
You think it's just they're turtling after that? I mean, Medal of Honor was, let's be honest, was a failure.
Yeah.
So
well, if you're trying to compete against...
Right, in that regard, I mean, it did not dent.
Yeah.
My understanding is, and this is from just speaking to several people, and nobody at this office, because the game, we recorded this on the Wednesday, and Shane, when did the game arrive in your sweaty paws?
I'm not going to say when it showed up. I'll just say that it showed up really late.
Okay.
In order to get the review done in time. And basically the next several days of my life are going to be...
So, this isn't coming from anybody here, but I have spoken to some people who have intimated to me that the mess that was the beta was a lot closer to the final finished game than a lot of people hoped, expected. I think the beta was a huge misstep for them. I am surprised. Honestly, if you have a game and you want to release a beta, if the beta is not up to scratch, you've got to have somebody evaluate it and say, no, we're not doing a beta. And say,
they should never have done the beta.
Sorry, people, we are not going to spend this time on the beta. We are going to make sure that we're getting the game out properly, and we will do some sort of demo, and lock it off. It's not exactly their first rodeo for DICE, and it's definitely not their first rodeo for EA. They should have known better. They, from what I'm hearing, and there's a day one patch planned for the console versions, not for the PC version, the console versions, which is really kind of scary. That this patch is probably going to be pretty damn big. And I'm also going to take issue with Microsoft and Sony here for letting this through, because they need to be the guardians of their console, and they need to turn around and say to EA, no, fuck off, go back and fix it, because they do that to smaller publishers and fuck them over all the time. So there are a lot of corporations here who need a collective kick up their anus. But if EA had had any sense at all, they wouldn't have been trash talking Activision. They would have said, all right, you know what? We want to do the best game possible. We want to do the most intelligent military shooter that can be produced with the best vehicles, the best multiplayer. We're going to bite the bullet here. We're going to step back. We've already made our fortune from Madden and from FIFA and everything this year. We know we've got the Old Republic coming out. We're going to step back and we're going to say, Battlefield is now going to ship in February. DICE, you have got another 4 months to get this sorted. Get it looking gorgeous. The Frostbite engine.
Fantasy.
No, it's what's known as holding games publishers to a higher standard than 90% of the media hold them to. There are a lot of outlets out there who will be happy to suckle at the teat, and I'm going to be really interested to see what reviews come out over the next couple of days. And if they are playing a pre-patched version of the game, they need to fucking say it's pre-patched.
Well, I mean, you review what's on the disc. You don't have to mention it's pre-patch. You just say this is what the game is.
And if the game is glitchy, because I'm going to disconnect my Xbox from Xbox Live when I get the game next week. I'm going to play it pre-patch. And if I see a fucking review out there where everybody takes the patch on board, I'm going to go ballistic. Yeah. And I think every gamer out there should be. If the game ships and the patch is out there and the patch makes it so much better, great. We have a great game. We're all happy.
Well,
but
we're not all happy, though, because
it's about standard. It's about standards.
Well, only half the people that own, for instance, an Xbox 360 are on Xbox Live. So the other half of people that buy that game, their ass out. They can't update the game. So
they have to take it to the local library and connect.
And I mean, just to kind of throw down, our editorial perspective on this here at GT, we review what is on the disc. I don't care who sends me this crazy document about everything that they're fixing and how everything is going to be all hunky-dory eventually. I'm not taking your word for it because I've heard that before, and your patch sucked and stuff was still screwed up.
That's already.
All right, so now we're going to talk about Ratchet and Clank All for One. Although I must say, after Bloodworth finished his review, it maybe should have been called All for Nothing. The bigger story here is this is an Insomniac game.
Technically.
It's
allegedly.
It's like Insomniac's
Farm League?
Inbred cousin.
Yeah. This is from their North Carolina studio.
And I'm not equating North Carolina to inbreds, by the way. I lived there for a very long time, and I got a lot of friends there.
Well, that explains a lot. Just kidding. So Bloodworth is here to talk about the game. You gave it, what, a 7?
7-1.
7-1. That's definitely the lowest score we've ever given a game from Insomniac.
Yeah, I guess there's, kind of the feeling I've had is this is a final retail game, and it feels...
You are playing the boxed copy.
Yeah, and it feels like I'm playing a preview build.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I were doing a preview, I'd probably be, pretty optimistic about the game. There's some things to work out and kinks, but no, this is the final game. It's like they didn't take that extra care of polish and level of detail that you would usually get out of an Insomniac game.
Right, which is very un-Insomniac.
I would have just been worried. I mean, I'm not a big visuals guy overall, but I mean, that series is known for having, especially on the PS3, having stunning visuals. And I just remember walking by and doing the obvious, hey, this looks like a PS2 game. And obviously it looks better than a PS2 game, but it just definitely didn't even have that, like, underlining sparkle that you'd expect.
It seems to me that Sony sort of like went to Insomniac and said, all right, we need a kid-friendly game for this Christmas. Here's our checklist. This is what it must have. It must have co-op. It must have 3D support. It must do this. And
does it have move support?
No, it doesn't.
Thank God for that. But it just seems like they had this checklist, and it's like, all right, well, we need a game because we know we have Uncharted coming out. That's going to be for the grown-ups, and we need something for the kids so that we can get them to, beg for a PlayStation 3 this year. And it's a shame because one of the first games I played when I got my PS3 was Ratchet and Clank. Was it Future Tools, I think it was?
Tools of Destruction.
Yeah, and I loved that game. I thought it just really took me back to just really enjoying 3D platformers that were just fun. The weapons were mental. But then I think we were at the same event a couple of months back where we sat and played this All for
None.
All for Skins, whatever.
All for Nothing.
And it felt really messy. I mean, it just felt just like cobbled together, like like a really bad episode of it, like a compilation of a TV show. It's like, all right, well, we got to have this level where there's a big frog monster, and this level where we've got to bounce along and things are going to jump out here and there, and it was very, very predictable and very disappointing.
And there's times when I feel almost like with that group mentality, it almost feels like the game's playing itself. It's just like
I played it for 5 minutes, and it definitely felt like you were like fly-by-wire sort of thing. I mean, those games have always been somewhat linear, but there's always a little bit of, elbow space to peck around. And I know, Bloodworth, you told me there was a little bit of, like, discovery, but I didn't see it at all.
It's very...
Before the game crashed.
Yeah.
Which there's lots of bugs, right?
On the retail.
Lots of bugs. I've got a whole paragraph with the bugs in the review, so if you want to see, we can probably, throw that reel on there right now.
I mean, did we need a Ratchet game this year? We've had an Insomniac game in Resistance 3.
Well, I mean, these are completely different games.
Yeah,
I think if the game were good, sure.
Ratchet is such a is a franchise that deserves some respect from Sony, and it should be perhaps if and the core Insomniac team can't do 2 games in a year, which they can't. I mean, that's a
No,
sensible
well,
option.
They're kind of doing it.
Yeah.
they're doing
They're doing simultaneous
EA
game
game.
production, yeah.
Well, that's the big thing here, right? Is they are on the verge of going third party, so to speak. And this is not what you want to have happen right before you starting to make games for all these other platforms. You don't want to soil your reputation and your name. So,
I think this goes back to something Daniel said like 3 years ago, I think, on Invisible Walls, where it's like, I think this kind of is a kid's game, right? Mm-hmm. And people don't fucking know how to make kids games anymore. Like, I think Daniel's thing was when we were kids, we played fucking Contra, and it was fine, you know? And I think the Ratchet games that came before this were kids games that, guess what? Adults could play and we're fine with. That's kind of what, you know, Nintendo tries to do. And I think a lot of times when people try to make children's entertainment post, you know, second grade, they just fail and end up making something that's a little bit dreck, and they just compromise a lot of vision that's good overall game design overall, and it doesn't end up being a good product.
Well, this is the problem. The world has changed since we were all playing games as kids.
Oh yeah.
You know, the days of us playing Contra and are gone, because you know, in this era of insanity where it's like, oh, we can't let the kids see anything violent or a pair of boobs or anything like that, blah 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 blah. You know, that means that those games are now, they're M-rated, they're teen-rated. Then
right, because if Contra were released now, it would probably be an M-rated game.
Yeah, and then you look at the other side of it, where these sort of games are not designed by developers anymore. They're designed by fucking focus groups. Focus groups are the most evil thing ever to be introduced to the world of video games. Marketing twats love focus groups. They will schedule focus groups to fuck up your PR plans years in advance. I had to go
but
through
you know
one
why?
fear. Oh, it's like
because it lets them off the hook. If they do the focus group, all they have to say is, "Oh, well, that's what the focus group said. I actually didn't make any decisions on this. It's what the people said that they wanted."
Yeah, I mean, focus groups are disgusting. If anybody wants to design a game, they should be a game designer. It shouldn't be a bunch of twats you get in having rounded them up from the nearest Pizza Hut and saying, "Oh, you won't come play a game? We'll give you $50." I'm sorry, those guys have no. They shouldn't be allowed near a game development process. Trust the developers, empower the developers, and you see now that with the games coming through on XBLA, and you see the games coming through on the App Store and Droid and iPhone, that there are some great games coming through where people are not designing for focus groups. They're not tainted by that touch. And this Ratchet and Clank game seems to me a perfect example of marketing had a checklist of things they wanted to push on the PS3 this year, and they basically needed to throw something to the dogs, so they've thrown Ratchet and Clank. And I guarantee you, as soon as the game bombs, which it probably will, they will be the first ones to step back and say, "Oh, it's Insomniac's fault. You didn't manage it properly."
One last question for you, Bloodworth. Is there anything in this game that, obviously we're telling people to not buy it based upon the score and the issues with the game, but for hardcore fans of Ratchet and Clank, are there moments in this game that they need to experience to make sure that they're caught up on the canon and they know what's going on with the characters?
I don't think there's anything like that, but I also kind of, I think that this is a game that, while it's flawed, it's still fun, and I think that there's people that are just going to be able to, not worry about that stuff. I think it's the Ratchet and Clank fans that are going to be the most disappointed in it. The average person is probably just going to be,
well, this is kind of fun.
Hold the gun button and run through it. Yeah.
Right.
In about 2 years' time, there'll be a new Ratchet 5 done by Insomniac, on this part of the world, and they'll preface it with Ratchet 4 being all a bad dream.
For centuries, Alderaan stood as a beacon of hope in the Republic. But the Empire came.
All right, next we're going to talk about, we already actually mentioned this game a couple times, Star Wars: The Old Republic, the big MMO coming out right before Christmas. Marcus has a couple things he'd like to say about it.
Yes, I'm kind of curious because EA have now announced that it's a global ship date on December the 20th. That means the entire planet, will be playing the game on
Wookiee Celebration Day.
Exactly, no Wookiee cookies for you, and it's Wookiee Life Day, I think it is. Isn't it? Yes. Anyway, but look, we're talking about the most anticipated MMO of the last few years, basically because of the fact that it's Star Wars and it's on PC, and I think a lot of people feel that it's going to be accessible. And my major worry is with this release date now is that it's 4 days before Christmas. there's a lot of people who are going to be getting it in their stockings from Santa, or Papa
In their
Noel
inbox
or
from
whoever.
Santa.
Yeah, I mean, can Origin handle the strain? What's going to happen when lots of people start logging on Christmas Day and there's nobody, are there going to be people around who are taking Christmas off just to throw up extra service? Now, I know EA have said in their defense that they are going to be regulating the amount of copies of the game that are going to be out there, but this is EA we're talking about here, who are, they can be twats at times. And I really don't think they will be regulating the amount of copies that'll be out there.
Oh, no, they'll sell as many as they can sell.
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw this out there as a kind of worry for, somebody like me who is planning on the 20th to,
shut it
stop,
down.
Yeah, stop playing the game and, spending most of Christmas playing the game, taking time off for Christmas dinner and the Doctor Who Christmas special, of course. But that's, that is my plan for this holiday season, to play this game. And I'm just kind of, throwing it out there. And, it'd be interesting to see what people's thoughts are if EA are even thinking of this, or whether they're just like, it's BioWare, it's Star Wars, it's going to sell so much money. Oh, I love myself.
I think that there's going to be a lot of people at EA that have a really shitty holiday.
Yeah, that's probably right.
I mean, when you're working on a project, they've spent, I can't even comprehend how much money they've spent on the voice acting alone for this game, and the writers. I mean, the rungs and rungs of script and all the recording they've had. I mean, when you invest that much money in a project, you're not just going to drop the ball at the end, right?
Well, how many MMOs have launched flawlessly?
None. I mean, they all launched beta.
Yeah.
What, like Final Fantasy 14 is just getting a redo. So
I mean, even World of Warcraft had issues when it first launched. I mean, but they've refined it now, so every time there's an expansion, it runs pretty much like clockwork. But yeah, every MMO that's ever shipped has had major teething troubles, and to release this globally 4 days before Christmas, and I know a lot of the world doesn't celebrate Christmas, and that's your
Well, I think
prerogative.
Ryan was saying that probably the tech support's located in India, where they do not celebrate Christmas. So
And I counted with where are the server farms located? Where in the U.S. don't they celebrate Christmas? 'Cause obviously, I'm worried about the nearest server farm to me. I want
Right.
to be able to log on and start playing as my Sith smuggler lesbian pirate. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there and just just a food for thought. And I'd like to see again, people discussing this on the comments page as opposed to just calling me a twat and calling you a twat and saying I should die. And I'm not trying to be argumentative. I would just like some constructive feedback and some discussion. So please feel free to let us know your thoughts.
guess what, people? It's time for On the Hook.
reality.
Reality. We haven't done this for a while, but man, we reached out to you guys for some questions. You gave us some really, really good ones.
So we're not going to talk about those. We're just going with the crap ones.
Yeah. We're only going to be able to get to 3, but maybe next week we can answer a couple extras depending on, well, I don't know, man. We got to talk about Uncharted and Battlefield next
So
show.
send us your Battlefield and Uncharted questions.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get around to answering them. Anyway, Marcus has the first question of the week.
I do, and it's from WarDragon989, which is a very macho name. What game in this busy holiday window will suffer the most? I think that might be... I think it'll be Battlefield 3.
You think?
I
'Cause
really...
I still think it's going to sell pretty well.
But I mean, we've already answered, and we've answered a couple of questions about it today. Will it sell the numbers that EA is expecting it to sell?
I don't know what they're
in
actually
Modern Warfare?
expecting.
Yeah, I think if they sell 2-3 million copies of that game, they'll be pretty stoked, and I think the game will hit that.
I think that one, I mean, we're halfway through the holiday window. I think that one might suffer, and this depends on the reviews. I mean, it's a nebulous thing right now, and this is just my gut reaction. I think, honestly, one other one that might perhaps not sell, and I'm going to be a little controversial here, is Uncharted 3.
Well,
I
it
think-
never has really
I
sold
think
that
it'll be a
well.
critical.
It sells
It'll
to
be
its
a-
base.
It'll be
I don't-
a critical darling to a certain degree. But
Sorry.
I will say that I think the Subway ads with Nathan
They
Drake.
are all over the
Yeah,
place.
I think they are going to be they're damaging the credibility of the game. I know Sony are trying to get it out to a wider audience, but I think I'm suffering from Uncharted overkill. I've said this before, and Uncharted was one of my tips for Game of the Year, and now I think it's going to suffer a little bit in comparison, allowing Batman Arkham City to be Game of the Year.
If I can just throw in, I think Assassin's Creed this year is going to not maybe hit the expectations. We're seeing it become a yearly franchise. The last one was... I still haven't played Brotherhood, but I watched the reviews, saw you play a bunch of it, Shane. It's more of the same. They added some cool stuff, but I don't think it has had that monumental leap. And then you have a game like Arkham City, which is the sequel plus, where it actually adds a bunch of stuff. We're kind of getting. Is that what bonus round set up against each other? Was it Batman and Arkham?
Yep.
Like I remember or Batman and Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not exactly apples and apples, but it's not apples and oranges either.
Batman would kick Ezio's ass.
Okay.
If I have to pick a game, I would say Rage. I think Rage is going to get lost in the slosh. There's too many other really good first-person shooters coming out, or at least first-person shooters with a lot more hype and a lot more marketing dollars, and I think that's probably a game that's going to suffer pretty poorly. Ryan, the next question.
This one is from, I believe it's, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Ian Pettit. This is, should more games aspire to the difficulty of Dark Souls? Should games not have difficulty scales? For the first part of the question, I don't think... I may sound a little silly here, but the difficulty is not really the biggest draw for me for that game. I don't particularly like difficult things. I like feeling rewarded, and I like feeling like things are fair. I still think, God Hand's a pretty... a title that gets a little contentious when people discuss it, and I still think one of God Hand's problems wasn't so much its difficulty, but its level of unfairness with viewing angles and trying to interrupt things for trying to get a good flow. I think the second part of the question is actually more interesting to me about difficulty scales, and I can say, as someone who plays games literally professionally, sometimes it's fun to just put a game on easy and just get through it and enjoy the experience. But then there's also this idea of this kind of shared experience, and I think the internet kind of does that as well, where you kind of want to have this similar progression as what your friends are doing, but you can experience it in different ways. So I can't really give a solid... No, I think difficulty settings are nice, and they should be there, but I don't think it's a golden rule that needs to be there for every particular game.
I think I agree with you to a certain degree, but I think if you don't have difficulty settings, you need to have adaptive AI in the game where it's the difficulty settings adapt to keep on giving you a challenge, because I want to be challenged when I play games.
Well, I would like games that have AI. I feel like most games don't even have AI anymore. They're like routines.
Yeah.
I also want a game
awesome.
to challenge me, but also to entertain me. And I will say, having played Dark Souls a fair amount, it's really beginning to get on my tits. It's almost to a level of vindictiveness, and I feel there are a lot of masochists out there who are loving the game. It's something that feels to me that if they'd taken a little bit more care. I don't want to be led by the nose. I hate that. I don't want everything handed to me on a plate. I like a challenge, but when it just becomes, almost like Dragon's Lair. Remember the old Laserdisc game where it's like one wrong step and you're dead. And I'm sorry,
and there goes your dollar.
that is not
literally
that,
your
for me,
dollar,
is not fun.
not your quarter.
That's like $7 in 2011 terms.
Yeah, I think I've made my opinion on Dark Souls known already. I kind of agree with Marcus in some ways on the game. That said, looking at the first part of this question, I think, yes, there should be more difficult games because there is an audience for it. I mean, there are people like Ryan that love Dark Souls. Pretty much my entire editorial staff loves Dark Souls except for me. So there are people out there. The first game sold pretty well. I think that if they made more games that were this difficult, they would probably do pretty well if they started getting that reputation like Dark Souls and Demon Souls has. So I think there's certainly room for more games like it. Would I play them? Probably not. Next question for me.
Shane, can you read this next one, please?
This question is from PS Dan 007. And his question is, what category for the Game of the Year awards are you most excited to see unfold besides Game of the Year? And for me, it's very easy first-person shooter. I mean, one, it's completely clogged and crowded with amazing games. And two, you have this subcontext of the whole Modern Warfare 3 versus Battlefield 3 thing. So I think it's going to be exciting to see how it all plays out. You also forget we had games like Killzone that came out earlier in the year. You have games like Resistance that have come out. You have Rage. It's been a really good year for the genre, so I think it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out and how everyone's individual tastes ultimately culminate in the discussions that we will have for that award at the end of the year.
I'm looking forward to Best Kiss. Oh, sorry, that's the other awards, isn't it? I'm looking forward to sort of like, I mean, there are so many different Game of the Year awards, and are we talking about Spike VGAs or just in general? But just in general, I am looking forward to just the love that Arkham City has to get this year in various categories, voiceover work, storytelling. I think.
I don't know, man.
Honestly,
I've been playing some games that are going to be hard to beat,
You know
bro.
what? This is Mark. This is
Really?
Mark Hamill's final performance as the Joker.
Really
before.
hard to beat.
I don't think there is. I know you're probably talking about Uncharted.
No, I've been playing lots of games. I'm not saying what game. I'm saying that there have been some very high
Is it Kirby?
bars set. Oh, damn it, dude.
Professor Layton. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to seeing how hopefully this game gets the love it kind of got a little bit. It perhaps didn't quite deserve. 2 years ago. This
Which
time,
was what I contended back then.
Yeah, but I think this time is such an evolutionary jump forward for the game and what they've done. I'm looking forward to seeing Arkham dominate this year.
Good luck with that. That's it. Episode 182 in the books. Again, I apologize for promising Uncharted 3 this week. The good news is next week could quite possibly be the best episode of the year for Invisible Walls. We have
Fantasy.
fantasy,
Total
reality.
bollocks. And we're actually recording early next week.
We are. We have battle guaranteed, without a doubt. I'll do something if I'm wrong. We will have both Uncharted 3 and Battlefield 3 in the same episode of Invisible Walls, a blockbuster. So really excited about that. I think from here on out, the show should be great. I know I said that last week. We kind of got screwed with some embargo stuff, but should be good until the end of
I don't know.
2011.
I thought the show was pretty great.
No, the show was good.
Good. It's great.
I think we cobbled together some pretty good shit on the downtimes.
This Monday at 6 and 8, we are going to be doing Hour 1. Remember Hour 1 is when we play the first hour of a game with Battlefield 3. So you guys can get a little sneak peek at this game from EA and see if it's worth your time. Also, check out Twitter this weekend. We're going to be giving out Gears of War 3 season passes. So make sure you follow us, and that's Twitter at Invisible Walls and at Invisible Walls, and we'll be asking some trivia or something along those lines, and you can get yourself a season's pass to all of that Gears content.
As always, folks, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Save your pennies. The big games are coming. Invisible Walls is up and out.